A small Filipino boy steps nervously onto the enormous AGT stage. Bright lights blind him, and the audience's murmurs feel deafening. In his hands is a worn notebook filled with lyrics his late grandmother taught him. He whispers softly, "This is for you, Lola," and takes a deep breath. No one expects what is about to unfold. The boy stepped onto the enormous stage, his small frame almost swallowed by the bright lights that glared down at him. The roar of the audience felt like a tidal wave crashing around him. Yet he clutched his worn notebook tightly, the edges frayed from years of use. Each page contained words and melodies his late grandmother had carefully taught him. The same grandmother who had raised him after his father left and who had worked tirelessly to make sure he never went hungry. The memory of her gentle voice whispered in his ears, "Sing from your heart, anak, and you will touch the world." Growing up in a small town in the Philippines, life had never been easy. He had watched his mother wake before dawn to prepare fruits for the market, carrying heavy baskets under the blistering sun, yet always greeting him with a smile. Their home was Modesta, small, weathered house with peeling paint and a single flickering fan, but it was filled with love. Even in hardship, he remembered how his mother shared what little they had with neighbors who had even less, offering fruits, smiles, and kindness without expectation. These small acts of generosity had left a mark on him, shaping the way he saw the world. That giving, even when it cost you, was worth more than gold. Music had always been his refuge. While other children played outside or bought toys, he would sit by the window, notebook in hand, singing along with old records of Elvis Presley. His grandmother had noticed his fascination with the king of rock and roll and encouraged him, often humming alongside him in the evenings. "Music is a gift. Anak, share it, and you will find joy beyond measure," she would say, her eyes twinkling with pride. Those moments became his sanctuary, a place where dreams felt possible, no matter how far away they seemed. Now, standing on the AGT stage, everything he had ever known, the struggles, the sacrifices, the love, and the countless small acts of kindness felt like it had led him to this exact moment. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with a quiet determination. He looked out into the crowd, catching glimpses of expectant faces, some smiling politely, some whispering to each other. None of them knew his story. None of them knew that this performance was more than a chance at fame. It was a tribute to his grandmother, to his mother, and to every small act of love that had carried him to this point. Taking a deep breath, he opened the notebook and traced the first words with his fingers, feeling a surge of courage. "This is for you, Lola," he whispered again. The murmurs of the audience faded in his mind as he prepared to let his voice carry the weight of his life, his dreams, and the kindness that had shaped him. This was more than a performance. It was a story, one that would soon touch the hearts of everyone watching, including a man known for being impossible to impress. As the first notes escaped his lips, the boy's voice was soft, almost fragile. But there was something unmistakably captivating about it. It was a voice shaped not just by lessons and practice, but by life itself, by the laughter and tears, the long walks under the hot sun, the nights spent listening to his grandmother's stories while the world outside slept. Every note carried a lifetime of struggle, yes, but also hope, resilience, and an unwavering spirit. In that moment, the boy didn't just sing. He shared a piece of his soul. The audience, initially polite and curious, began to lean in, drawn in by the sincerity of his performance. They could sense the story behind the song, the long hours he had spent helping his mother at the market, the evenings, singing alone by candlelight because their small home often had no electricity, and the countless acts of generosity he had witnessed and participated in despite having so little himself. This wasn't a rehearsed performance. It was the embodiment of a life lived with love and kindness. His mind wandered briefly to his mother, who had whispered encouraging words that morning before he left. "Sing with your heart, Anak. Let them feel your story." She had worked tirelessly, waking before dawn, carrying heavy baskets of fruit, and yet she never complained. Her resilience, her selflessness, and her quiet courage had shaped him more than any formal music lesson ever could. Every note he sang was infused with that love. a tribute to her sacrifices and the values she had instilled in him. Even the judges, who had seen countless performers, were caught off guard. Simon Cowell, known for his critical eye and tough demeanor, sat forward, his expression unreadable at first, then slowly softening as the boy's voice grew stronger and more confident. It wasn't just talent that had captivated him. It was authenticity. Every phrase, every emotion carried the weight of a life filled with both hardship and love. It was impossible not to feel it, impossible not to be moved. The boy's confidence grew with each measure. He no longer trembled or hesitated. Instead, he leaned into the song, letting his emotions flow freely. He remembered his grandmother's advice: don't sing to impress, sing to touch hearts, and that was exactly what he was doing. Each note resonated with the audience and judges alike, reminding everyone that true artistry comes not from perfection, but from passion, courage, and a heart that has loved deeply. By the time he reached the bridge, the audience was completely silent, entranced. Even Simon's stoic demeanor began to crack. The boy's voice had transformed from timid beginnings into a powerful testament to resilience and humanity, proving that even the smallest, humblest voices can leave the strongest impression. It was more than music, it was a story of life, struggle, love, and the remarkable strength that comes from kindness and perseverance. By the time the boy reached the final chorus, his voice had transformed. What began as a soft, tentative melody had grown into a soaring, soulful performance that filled every corner of the theater. Each note carried the weight of his journey, the struggles of a childhood spent in poverty, the nights spent singing alone under dim light, and the countless small acts of kindness he had witnessed and shared in his community. But more than that, each note carried love, for his mother, for his late grandmother, and for the belief that even someone so small could make a difference in the world. The audience sat in stunned silence. You could almost hear hearts catching in throats, a collective gasp of awe at the raw honesty of what was unfolding on stage. This was not a performance crafted for applause or approval, it was a performance of the soul. His eyes closed, he felt the music, the emotions, and the memories flowing through him, guiding his voice. The worn notebook lay forgotten on the stage floor, because he no longer needed the words. They were alive in him now, spilling out naturally, effortlessly, perfectly. Simon Cowell, the notoriously critical judge, leaned forward in his chair. His sharp eyes, often scanning for flaws, now widened with disbelief. He was not just listening. He was witnessing something rarer, pure, unpolished talent wrapped in honesty and humanity. The kind of performance that could not be taught, that could not be faked. It was the music of a life lived with love, a voice shaped by compassion and struggle, and an authenticity that demanded attention. Even Simon's usual composure began to crack as he leaned forward, trying to absorb every note. As the boy hit the high notes of the final chorus, the emotion in the room became tangible. Tears glistened on cheeks throughout the audience. Even the cameramen, normally invisible behind their lenses, looked up in awe. The boy's hands, once clenched, nervously, now moved with purpose, accompanying the song with subtle gestures that amplified its sincerity. Every gesture, every inflection, every quiver in his voice carried the story of a young boy who had endured hardship but refused to let it harden his heart. When the last note lingered in the air, the theater held its breath. Silence enveloped the space, not awkward silence, but reverent silence. Then, slowly, applause began, tentative at first, then building into a roar that shook the room. Simon Cowell rose from his chair, eyes glistening, visibly moved. He had witnessed countless acts of talent, but this was different. It wasn't just about the singing. It was about the humanity, the kindness, the resilience, the courage of a boy who had turned his pain into beauty, and in doing so, touched every heart in the room. The boy opened his eyes. Seeing the awe and emotion reflected in the faces of judges and audience members alike, he realized that he had not just performed, he had connected, in the most human way possible, transcending language, culture, and circumstance. His voice had become a bridge, reminding everyone that even in the smallest acts of life, Greatness and kindness can shine. The final note had barely faded when the theater erupted in thunderous applause. For a moment, the boy stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sudden wave of sound and emotion. He had performed with all his heart, yet the sheer intensity of the audience's reaction caught him off guard. The clapping and cheering were not just for a song, they were for the story he had shared, the struggles he had endured, and the kindness that had shaped his life. Simon Cowell rose from his chair, his usual stern expression softened by genuine awe. He approached the boy with deliberate steps, eyes glistening with emotion. "That was extraordinary," Simon said, his voice catching slightly. "I've seen hundreds of performers, but I've never felt anything like that. You didn't just sing, you shared your soul." The boy's chest swelled with a mixture of pride and humility. This was not just praise for talent. It was acknowledgement of every sacrifice, every hardship, and every act of kindness that had led him to this moment. The other judges followed, their expressions mirroring Simon's astonishment. They stood, applauding and nodding in admiration. The boy's performance had transcended music hit, had become a story of resilience, hope, and the quiet power of compassion. It was a moment that reminded everyone in the room that greatness is not measured solely by skill, but by the depth of one's heart. Backstage, his mother rushed to him, tears streaming down her face. She enveloped him in a tight embrace, feeling both relief and pride. "You did it, Anok," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Your Lola would be so proud." The boy hugged her back, feeling the weight of the journey he had taken, the early mornings helping at the market, the lonely nights practicing by candlelight, the countless moments of small generosity he had witnessed and shared. It all culminated here, in this embrace, in this recognition. Simon, still visibly moved, followed them backstage. "You have a gift," he said softly, kneeling to be at the boy's level. "Not just in your voice, but in your heart. That is rare. Remember this feeling. Remember what your heart can do." The boy nodded, feeling a warmth that had little to do with the stage lights or applause. This was the validation of everything he had learned about love, kindness, and perseverance. Around them, the production team and other contestants watched, inspired by the authenticity and humility of this young boy. In a world often obsessed with spectacle, he had reminded everyone that true impact comes from sincerity, courage, and generosity of spirit. The applause and praise were powerful, but what lingered most was the connection, the shared understanding that one small, kind-hearted individual could move hearts, inspire dreams, and leave an indelible mark on the world. As he stood there, holding his mother's hand and feeling the embrace of support from those around him, the boy realized that his journey was far from over. This recognition was not the destination. It was a bridge to something greater. He had touched hearts tonight, and in doing so, had discovered that kindness, courage, and love could resonate far beyond a single performance. Backstage, the boy stood with his mother, still catching his breath from the overwhelming performance. The applause from the theater seemed to echo in his chest, a sound that would linger in his memory forever. He looked around, taking in the bustling energy of cameras, crew members, and other performers, yet he felt a quiet calm within him. For the first time, he understood that his journey was bigger than a single song. It was about the people he loved, the kindness he had witnessed, and the dreams he carried in his heart. His mother hugged him tightly, whispering, "Your Lola would be so proud. She's with you tonight," smiling, Enoch. The boy closed his eyes and imagined his grandmother's gentle face, her encouraging smile, the warmth of her hands on his tiny ones as she taught him his first songs. All the hardships, the sleepless nights, practicing by candlelight, the long walks to help at the market, they had all led him to this moment. Every challenge had shaped him, but it was his heart, full of kindness and love, that had made him extraordinary. Simon Cowell approached again, this time with a softer, more personal tone. "I've seen countless performances," he said, placing a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "But what you did tonight, it's something rare. You've shown the world that talent is important, yes, but a kind heart, courage, and love are even more powerful. Remember that." The boy nodded, absorbing every word. He felt recognized not just for his singing, but for who he was, a compassionate, humble soul with a story worth sharing. The other judges and contestants gathered around, offering smiles, congratulations, and kind words. Many were inspired, reflecting on their own lives and the small acts of generosity that often go unnoticed. In that moment, it became clear that the boys' performance had done more than entertain it, had sparked a reminder of humanity, hope, and empathy. Everyone in the room felt it, an invisible connection woven through music, kindness, and shared emotion. As the boy walked toward the exit, he waved to the audience one last time. Their cheers, applause, and tears had affirmed something deeper than fame or recognition. They had witnessed a story of resilience, selflessness, and love. He realized that no matter where life took him, he could carry this truth with him, that kindness is a gift. And even small acts can touch hearts, inspire others, and change the world in ways unseen. In the quiet moments afterward, he looked up at the bright stage lights one more time, imagining his grandmother smiling down at him. He knew that this was only the beginning, that his voice could continue to carry hope, joy, and inspiration. And in that realization, he felt a warmth and confidence that went far beyond applause. It was the certainty that living a life full of love and kindness was the greatest performance of all. As he stepped out into the night, hand in hand with his mother, he carried not only the memory of his performance, but the enduring message of his journey. That even the smallest, humblest voices, when guided by love and kindness, can shine brighter than any spotlight and touch hearts around the world. Uplifting message. True greatness is measured not just by talent, but by the depth of your heart. Kindness, courage, and love leave a mark that lasts far longer than applause.